thank you all of you for making the trip up to this part of the convention center. Excited today to talk about modernizing emergency management and public safety with digital solutions. My name is Chris Dilley, so I'm our CTO focused on our U.S. state and local government and higher education business. One of my roles is, as we continue to expand and support some of our different mission areas, and public safety and emergency management is a key one for us. So we're excited to have a couple panelists today. We're going to talk through some different questions and talk about some of the things that we are doing and some of the things that are possible as we continue to drive digital solutions for emergency management. Go to the next slide, please. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about AI, the AI platform for government transformation. You know, as we heard in the keynote from Chris Betty, we continue to evolve and drive what we can do in the platform, and AI is going to be the center of everything we do as an organization. And the impact that it can make in government, the impact that it can make in all aspects of government operations, constituent-facing situations, and what we're going to talk about today is emergency management, and how having this infinite loop, this ecosystem, to be able to support all these aspects is going to be critical to what we expect from a constituent experience, from our lives as citizens of the United States going forward. And we believe our platform is really going to make a difference to accelerate those. Go to the next slide, please. And as we heard, you know, data is at the core, the center of everything we do. Being able to utilize data, and we're actually going to hear some great examples today as we talk about that. But being able to use our AI agents in the ServiceNow platform, tied with data, and then tied with the workflows that many of you know and have been working with across your agencies and departments so far, is really going to be able to help us accelerate what we do and how we do it. So with that, I'd like to move forward and talk about our great speakers. So I'm so excited to have Jason Cowan, Director of Business Services from North Carolina Department of Transportation, and Daniel McCoy, Fire Chief from DC EMS, joining us today. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about emergency management and what it means, especially in this area. We all heard about what happened, and you know, to our first responders, to Danny and to Jimmy, those in the room, and to other first responders that did this. Just can't thank you enough for what you guys have done and what the community has had to go through. So thank you. So with that, I'll pass it to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. First, I have to address Deputy Fire Chief, he's my boss, is watching, but Danny McCoy, responsible for Homeland Security and Special Operations, District Columbia Fire Department.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Jason Cowan, like you said, Director of Business Services at DOT in North Carolina, and you know, we deal all things ServiceNow. So I'll try not to be a salesperson too much for ServiceNow, but we're big fans. So
yeah. What we think DOT? Well, how does that relate to emergency services and public safety? And they're doing some great things. And again, going back to that infinity loop, how we think about how their data and what they do ties in with other aspects of this data is pretty fantastic. So let's dive into the questions. So Danny, I'm going to start with you. So just from your perspective, how can technology be leveraged to improve real-time incident response and coordination among multiple public safety and emergency response agencies?
So that's a question with a lot of answers, right? You know, in our area in the District of Columbia, we're fortunate enough that we have partners to east and west that we work well with, and we're always striving to improve fire and EMS response, right? I think as we grow as a fire department, we also realize what the importance is of the consequence management phase, right? How do we work with our emergency management agency and continue flow? The most basic level, the fire department wants to get there fast, right? So computer-aided dispatching, predictive software for apparatus placement. The most basic AI, probably before anybody even knew it was AI, is call taking. I call and say I have a headache. You flip a card and you say, maybe they have this. And you get some type of response, whether it's fire and EMS, you know, BLS or ALS response. But I think what we need to do and where we're going is how do we gather data as a whole, right? And how do we improve the system that we have and have that system of data and answers continue through the whole incident, right? And then continue on to other agencies or continue on advising and informing other agencies of what we did so they can actually grow and prepare for responses.
Yeah, that's, I mean, how we see, and you know, I've talked about this, how we see data just being interfaced with all that and being able to share that. I know even, again, last week's emergency, you talked about just the multi-jurisdictional, all the different coordination of those resources and having inside information to be able
Yeah.
to drive those actions is critical.
Yeah, there's 30 plus law enforcement agencies in the district and one fire department. So it gets difficult sometimes. Information silos, sharing of information, who can you trust the information you get? And that's in the city. And then, when you talk about on the boundaries or Maryland and Virginia, or just the national capital region as a whole, everybody is trying to do the same thing, right? They're trying to gather data. They're trying to predict, what resources they'll need in the future, staffing needs, what emergencies they're going to have. But it always stops right there when the fire department were done, but it actually continues on for emergency management, and they should be able to pick up with what occurred, the resources, information that we provide them, and then move forward through, consequence management. But
Absolutely. Jason, how about you? Talk to us about.
Yeah, so for us, obviously, it's a little different, being DOT, but we, and a ServiceNow customer. So one of the huge benefits for us is in ServiceNow as a whole is the ability to integrate with many different systems, right? To bring in that data that we need and not having to reinvent. And taking that, one of the scenarios that we're currently in development with one of our implementation partners is the License and Theft Bureau, which DMV falls within DOT in North Carolina. They do in an area of 100,000 investigations and fraud type situations a year. So having that capability to create like a centralized dashboard system for multiple agencies to access and get that real-time data and provide integrity to the data so it's accurate, timely. And then from an alerting perspective, all the communication streams that you can send out through ServiceNow is very dynamic and helpful. And one scenario in particular, we remember the riots or potential for riots and protests back in 2020. We were approached by our security office team to see if that capability existed within ServiceNow to send out alerts and based on site location, having that data already pre-populated and made it very, very easy to do, and they were able to do that. So it's been critical in those areas, and we look forward to the similar and enhanced capabilities that we're going to provide to the License and Theft Bureau.
Yep.
With AI coming into the play.
So just to build on that statement, so how does identity tie in with some of this? Because I know we talked about this, North Carolina DOT DMV falls under that. And so looking at licensing and identity, how does that play into some of the data that can be used around some of these areas?
Yeah, so if I understand your question correctly, so again, the ability to integrate with multiple systems, we've been able to leverage APIs into our mainframe data to pull in that data into ServiceNow so that agents, our call centers can access that data immediately into the system. So.
No, and then being able to, I know a lot of states are going with digital licenses now, so you can have them on your phone. And
Yeah.
again, thinking about from a first responder perspective, being able to, again, identify somebody and maybe if there's medical issues,
Cool.
those are some of the things that, again, my home state of Iowa, we're looking at more of that. What access can first responders have to some of those digital credentials for an individual to maybe understand if there are underlying medical issues or whatever it may be.
Yeah, we have, so one of the things I think is most people are familiar with Smart 911, right?
Yep.
The ability for you to enter information specific to you that, whoever is responding for your emergency gets that information. It may be something as simple as I live in the basement, you have to go down the stairs to the rear. And it could be something as complex as, I have an LVAD machine that I have to go to hospital X because they wouldn't know how to treat it at a local hospital. But just having that information available to us, the fire department is a bonus, but having that information to everybody that's there, right? So law enforcement or any other, agencies that are involved. I think that the obstacle there again is how do you get everybody on the same page, right?
Sure.
So.
Yeah, we talked about that, some of the silos of
Yeah.
information and being able to share some of that. All right, let's talk about AI. Obviously, AI is everywhere. It's turned into a drinking game now, when a lot of conferences. But just talk to us about how AI and automation within ServiceNow can enhance public safety, emergency preparedness, disaster response. Just share kind of your thoughts on where this is going. Let's start with you, Jason.
Yeah, you're right about that. You can't walk 10 yards around here without seeing AI or hearing about it. But it's really a good time and for that question for us. We're about to go live with our first implementation of the Now Assist within ServiceNow tomorrow. We're starting internal to IT with ITSM, of course, get used to it, get familiar. And then that request actually came about 1.5 years ago when we went live with our D&B call center to implement those types of situations there. So we're talking about case summarization, resolution note generation, virtual agent, all those capabilities that we're about to bring to the business to reduce the time to resolution for those types of incidents, freeing them up to move forward with more critical tasks and dedicate that extra time to. So that's what we're hoping to do.
Then where do you see it going? If
So I mean, obviously, it's funny you say that because with AI, we were on the once a year upgrade cycle, right? So with AI, I don't think that's really realistic anymore. I'm talking with our team, we're going to have to look at that and potentially upgrade every new version that comes out because of just like in the keynote and what you just spoke of. And one of the conversations we had at World Forum back in November with one of the ServiceNow, Michael Park. Yeah, so just the level of information and the capability that's going to come with that is exponential. So we're going to have to get in line.
It's going to accelerate things. What's your thoughts on AI? How do you see using it in the field?
I have a lot of ideas. I think I've been a fire service as a whole. People are probably hesitant, right? Something new, change is hard. We hold on to traditions, but I think, and I think we're going in the right direction. Is similar to call volume, right? We use AI to decide an AI platform that could tell us that this city block is more likely to have a fire than this city block. It's something that we really don't have. We have historical data that says we have more fires in these areas. We use it for predicting EMS responses, call volume, but having something that you could say, my house is X, right? It had this many calls, this many, over so many years. And then if something happens, what comes next, right? So again, it's in my head, AI. You have a house fire, automatic notification to Public Works, Department of Transportation, any of the other agencies that may be affected by the house fire, right? And it wouldn't be blanket notification. In the beginning, it would be unit goes on the scene with some type of emergency, which triggers these other notifications or other responses, right? We don't really have that now outside of people saying, I have a house on fire, I have a car accident, I have a medical emergency. And then really in the future, I think that the way 911 calls are processed and the way we use 311 is the non-emergency, the way that is processed, I think will go all automated. And that will increase efficiency, right? For the non-emergency calls. I don't know where that boundary is for the human person answering a real 911 call and then the AI, but I think in the future that'll be common practice across the country.
Yeah, when we were in my talk track, talk about plume modeling.
Plume model.
And so if there's you talk about how AI might be able to help with some of that.
Yeah, so the fire department isn't just limited to house fires. We deal with hazardous materials incidents, sea burn incidents, mass casualties, all the things you could think of. The fire department's plugged in. It's hard a lot of times. We talk to people. They're like, "Did you run a fire yesterday?" No, we ran a mass casualty, multiple people shot. Something that had nothing to do with house fire or some type of hazardous material incident. In the past, we'd go to a book, open it up, and try to figure out what type of emergency we're dealing with in a hazmat world, right? What type of actions we need to take. Plume modeling downstream, right? Do we need to do this? Do we need to evacuate people? In the future, I see, you click a button or you enter information and it does it for you, right? It tells you that this is going to be the affected area for this hazard material, or this is going to be where you can shelter at different things. But that's what I see.
Yeah, and you talked about weather patterns. And if it's windy and the weather's blowing this way, and it happens to be a chlorine or whatever type of chemical spill, there may be this evacuation. So again, having that data and be able to drive those actions, those results is critical to what citizens want, get people evacuated more rapidly. So
and think about being able to access, everybody has a cell phone, right? Being able to use the data that's coming off your phone into our plan, right? You wouldn't have to do anything different other than be in the room with your phone, right? Pick up temperature, location, all that information would be able to go into our decision-making, when we plan out how we're going to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about citizen engagement. From a citizen engagement perspective, obviously, public service, public safety, emergency management, ultimately it's to serve the citizens, the taxpayers. So what do you think that looks like from a citizen engagement perspective? We talked about communication perspective, just to help during some of these emergency management incidents.
So I think citizen engagement is really important, right? We get a lot of information from people that are at an incident or have information to share. There's so many platforms right now that you can use to submit information, right? If there was a single resource that you could, funnel everything to, you get text messages, SMS messages, phone calls. I think that the more that the community is involved, the more accurate your information gathering is, right? You can vet things that are happening by utilizing, open source information. And I think people as a whole want to be involved, right? Everybody, you see a train wreck, everybody watches the train wreck. It's crazy. Car accidents, a fire truck passes your house, you have the ability now to, go to an app and say, is there medical on my street? Is there a fire on my street? What we do here, we also do a lot of notifications, right? So if something happens in a quadrant of the city, those people that are there will get notified, right? The geographical location may get a alert on the phone that says, don't drink the water, similar to today, right? Or there's been a, stay in your house, shelter in place. Maybe it's it could be a fire EMS related thing. It could be law enforcement related, but having the ability to say, I'm in my house, respond back. There's somebody outside of my house, from your phone or from, whatever platform. I think it's going to be our future.
Yeah. You talked about this morning, we were chatting about how you guys use Waze.
Oh,
and some of that. So even for handling traffic patterns. And
yeah, we have a couple different platforms that we use for response for identifying traffic patterns, response routes. We have some anti-collision information where if two fire trucks are coming at each other or could cross, we have red light flashes on the dash of the fire truck or ambulance. And then Waze, right? If you use Waze, you're driving down the road, it'll tell you there's a fire truck or a law enforcement officer at the intersection. That's all data information that's provided by somebody, right? So if it's DC fire truck, it comes from DC, from the fire department. Law enforcement, it comes from their agency, but there's no reason it couldn't include DPW, right? DDOT has the street shut down. Any of the other various reasons traffic closures would occur.
Yeah, fantastic. Jason, from a DOT, DMV perspective, talk to us about citizen engagement.
Yeah, it's just more of the same, really. What we're doing is citizen self-service portal type information. Citizen, me as a citizen, I like to stay informed and get information from different agencies and that sort of thing. But yeah, license theft within DMV, we're in that process of building out that system for them, migrating off an old legacy system that you just can't get data out of or report very easily on that situation. So when we talk about that self-service portal, allows folks within North Carolina to request those services that they need or submit and track incidents, live incidents, and really get all that information. So that's kind of stuff we're doing.
So talk to us about the scope of that license and theft application.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and avoid using the current vendor that built, but basically about 2019, it was a place and time built application. They didn't really have anything prior, so it was good at the time when it was built. It's a case management system that they do all their inquiries, the cases, all their investigation is tracked in there. What we're finding out now is we're transitioning all of that application into ServiceNow, is that the data is very difficult it's a project within a project. So much so that in order to get that data from that current system into ServiceNow, the current vendor they said it would take 3 months and $350,000 to do. Fortunate for us, we had a good team of developers working with, I will say, Servos, to be able to in-house code the ability to manipulate that data the way we need it to get it into ServiceNow properly. And we did that within about 2 weeks. So, yeah.
So the scope of that license, and that it's vehicle licensing.
Yeah, well, so what they do is, like I said, they're doing stolen vehicle investigations, fraud, audits, regulatory audits, those types of things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you see how that, which is going to lead to the next question, how that data can be utilized in so many other ways. So, so Danny, we talked about, just some of the 30 some plus law enforcement agencies. So as you think about data and how just all the various systems of truth and those legacy and some modern applications, what do you see some of those challenges, from a data perspective?
So we see a lot of challenges, right? Money is always a challenge, right? But I think the biggest challenge regionally for us is trust and silos of data, right? What information your agency is willing to share. If you have 30 different law enforcement agencies and each one of them, they don't talk to each other. Then when the fire department comes in, we end up being the joiner, believe it or not. So what we've been able to do is have access to agencies' information, their data, and then create our own dashboards to create things that we use to show a fire and EMS response information. Legacy, I think people hold on to things that they are comfortable with. I think that, especially in public safety, things that work, they're more likely not to change, even though you can improve on them. And then modernization is breaking down those silos, right? Creating a common platform that we regionally could use to, address any type of emergency. And I always speak up fire and EMS, but it really is, as a whole, if we could get our region on the same page that we all have the same information, going into the fight, right? Then when we're done the fight, we can clean up together and we can, prepare for the next incident. I'm not sure. I think money is the big one. So
That's a big one, yeah. Yeah, there's always those silos that you got to try to break down some of those. Jason, thoughts on data?
Yeah, definitely right along the same lines. Coming from military, I mean, a lot of the same situations, even as recent as 22 when I retired. So, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me, but there's hope, right? So within our world, data, again, going back to what I said earlier, the ability of ServiceNow to be able to integrate with all these systems is great. We're APIs into the mainframe to pull in data, infrastructure systems, security systems, SAP to get personnel, and have that data populated into ServiceNow with the ability to pull from each system is critical for all the different customers to use. So,
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a customer this morning, and the data fabric orchestration that we talked about at the keynote, and they put up some popular applications like Snowflake and Databricks, but think of some of those legacy applications. They've been able to drive that utilize that data fabric with all these other external sources, so you can come back and really make decisions with data that's sitting in a whole nother LLM, in another cloud application. I mean, it's just the possibilities are endless and how we can really accelerate. But it all comes down to trusting the data, and making sure you have the right information, and to be able to utilize those things. So, yeah, it's just very exciting times. I'm working with another customer in the West that is utilizing. They have a 950-page standard operating procedures manual, and they had over 50% turnover in their police force. And so, being able to bring new cadets on and have them utilize and digest this 950-page operating manual, and so using AI to digest that and help these cadets actually make decisions faster and more accurate, because they can utilize AI to help. How do they work with fire? What are they supposed to do in these situations? Or when do they report other things? It's just tremendous.
On that same note, I think that if contingency planning is one of the big things we do, right? If we were able to have a AI we have a 2-story row house on fire. What resources do I need or whatever? Even at that lowest level, the next thing is we have a chemical attack on the federal building in the city. What resources may you need? And then have that make notification, right?
Sure.
That would be amazing.
My son's a firefighter as well, and he talks about knowing even what year the home was built.
Sure.
Can determine how it burns, because the wood is a
Right.
lot thicker, denser in the 70s and earlier houses than it is in the 80s and later. So
And I think the future of AI for the fire EMS is just that, right? You'll know that an area of houses built in the 60s or different houses built in the 1890s. And as construction becomes, better and fires are less likely, it'll be easier to predict. But having that ability, especially if you're resource strapped, right? If you don't have resources, it, would be amazing. It also really helps us with positioning resources, right? If we know that this area is going to have, more likely to have a house fire, more likely to have, overdoses or, some type of medical emergency, we can pre-position resources in that area during those times. We have predictive software that does that now. Oftentimes it's questioned, not that it's wrong, but legacy, right?
Sure.
What you believe is right, what you've used for the last 25 years, when a computer tells you you need to move engine X over here, you're like, we've never moved engine X over there. And then you see there's an emergency over there and you should have moved engine X. Just got to trust your data and trust the, the application.
Absolutely. No, wonderful. So here in a couple minutes, going to ask if there's any questions. So if you're thinking about some questions you want to ask Jason and Danny. So Jason, any great case studies, promote what NC DOT is doing and how you're going to continue to grow,
Yeah.
support this space.
Yeah, so I touched on the License Theft Bureau application, the case management that we're bringing into ServiceNow. I'm really excited to go live, looking like May timeframe to go live with that. They're excited. One of the tough things is you talk about holding on to legacy systems, having something that works, maybe not perfect, maybe not able to take advantage of AI and those sorts of things, but seeing is believing. And one of the things in working with our implementation partners, getting over the hump of requirements workshops, those types of things, and into seeing is believing, showback sessions, those types of things, the attitude changes. And so we're really excited about bringing them on board into ServiceNow and then layering eventually AI on top of that, speed up the situations that I've talked about earlier. So
How many miles of highway does NCDOT support roads across the state?
that's a good question. I'm a transplant, so I'm going to defer to Amy. Anybody over there know? Yeah, that is a great question. I really don't know.
Yeah, no,
But but I do know you could be on the beach one day and skiing later that evening. So you can go from east to
Sounds
west
amazing.
and do a
that's so
lot.
much better than Iowa. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could be in one farm field or the other, and
yeah.
that's about it. How about you, Dan?
I got to go back to what I talked about earlier. Smart 911 is probably the most innovative thing that we have that I think will only improve, right? Again, I go back to if you can enter what your needs are for an emergency, right, before an event occurs, or there is, some type of prediction of what emergency may occur in your neighborhood. I think it's a win, right?
Yeah, I think there's so many citizen engagement type applications now that you have to trust that data and trust where you're putting it so it can be utilized in the right ways. And I think, government is building that trust and building how they can respond and use that responsibly. So I think there's some tremendous opportunities there. So I'll ask, is there any questions that you want to, ask the esteemed panel today? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so appreciate the presentation so far. So reflecting on your presentation and also the keynote, there seems to be a lot of data sharing within ServiceNow. Like, just referring back to the keynote, in order to do that cost saving, you need project data. You also know your software asset data and probably all kinds of data that I didn't see over there. So from your experience, how do you guys make different apps or functional modules that kind of share data within ServiceNow? And if that has been done before, do you consider that to help you adopt AI, which sounds like the next step after data kind of speak to each other? Thank you.
Jason, you want to start with how you guys are approaching that?
Yeah, could you, I'm just trying to understand your question about the data sharing piece.
Yeah, so within ServiceNow, we have asset data, for example. We have project data. We have those ITSM, TK data. Do you guys use it across the platform? For example, this TK is using this specific asset, and based on the utilization of those assets, I predict certain incidents will happen. So kind of put it all together, any experiences from an emergency perspective?
From emergency, well,
Or whatever,
yeah.
So I can talk about that. So an example, so we work with a number of public safety police departments around the nation. And, when you're looking at different situations, some of the ones that Danny talked about, they're looking at some of those assets. They're going to be looking at, maybe it's SWAT resources, maybe it's different bomb squad, or just some different assets that where are these assets at? So being able to tie those back to looking at their CMDB, understanding where this is at, is it operable, or some of these things, and that's going to help drive alerts, going to help drive notification. So to be able to look across the platform and be able to drive some of those things. And then the other thing, this one police department that in particular is, as they look at the types of, they actually digest all the different types of emergency calls coming in. And so that's going to help them make better decisions of how they allocate different resources. Has this jurisdiction had more calls? So we need to put, a second ambulance, a second out at this particular fire station because we're seeing the population growth or whatever it is, to be able to drive some of those things. So having that enterprise view and being able to utilize all that data is tremendous. I don't know if there's anything more you want to add to that, or
No, spot on.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You had a question?
I was just curious about having your IT department and your business operations people working together and collaborating more now that AI has come into play, and how you guys might be leveraging that. Because sometimes when you're doing projects, you kind of have people staying on this side of the fence and this side of the fence. I'm just curious if you think AI is going to help you do better collaboration between the operations teams and the IT teams.
Yeah, from our perspective, I definitely hope so. I mean, that's like the ultimate benefit, right, for teams to be able to collaborate and work together. One of the scenarios when I talked about, we're about to go live, and eventually we have a DMV call center, another legacy system that came off spreadsheets and ServiceNow changed their world in a very positive way. But they interact with IT, so hopefully, that's a goal that those two sides of the house will continue to work together. And again, AI being on top of that time to resolution will decrease, right? That's what we want. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'll give you my perspective, then I'd love to hear yours, Danny. Having grown up in IT and then getting on the leadership side, so much of it has to do with building trust. And, as you think about, a lot of times IT's been an us and them. And I see with AI and being able to utilize and show the business back the impact they can make, that builds trust. And then, getting that support so they can help understand what AI can do for them, how they can accelerate some of their business decisions and help drive some of that. And so I'd welcome your input from.
Stole my little bit of thunder there.
All right, go ahead.
No, the same thing. I think, it's the trust, but what I think that we have done and moving forward, just as a group, we talk about it, right? We say this is AI, acknowledging what it is and what it can do. From the fire DMS emergency management lane, I think that once people realize the benefits, the time saved, the accurate accounting for responses, and what the outcome was, I think there'll be more buy-in. I think it'll take more time for fire trucks, ambulances to say I'm willing to accept that. A lot of it is gut instinct, and a lot of it is fear of what the unknown is. But I do anticipate this is, I think everybody's probably seen this, is once you show that you can be more efficient, that you can decrease call times, right? You can help people faster, and then not just in the emergency world. After that, the resources are there to support them. I think there'll be a lot more buy-in.
And yeah, just to add to that, because I think the other part is trust is a broad word. It's not just trust in the business. It's also, a lot of people think technology is going to replace them. And Chris Betty said something in the keynote today. It's about increasing capacity. It's what we can do, and the things that we don't need to be doing on a regular basis and handling. Let technology automate some of those things so we can really do the more meaningful stuff and drive some of that so we can help increase worker capacity. So great question. Any other questions? Yes.
Working in the federal government and being responsible for occupant emergency, physical security, And I know, as you mentioned, there are a lot of different law enforcement responses. So for us, and being in shared tenant space, we have a multitude between MPD, DC Fire Department, Federal Protective Service, DC's own emergency management. How do you foresee individual government agencies internally and externally leveraging AI or ServiceNow for better communication when it comes to response to emergency situations, especially like in the metropolitan area?
You want to? Go ahead.
Steal my thunder. And then I'll jump in at the end.
I mean, so if I understand your question, how do you really handle communication and escalate the response to some of these cross agencies? Is that the question?
Yeah.
No communication, nobody kind of knew what to do in that scenario. How can we leverage AI and technology moving forward to just kind of better be a little bit more coherent in what's happening and responses and communicating?
Sure. So one of the things that we're actually working on now, one of the things within ServiceNow, we define as playbooks. And basically it's be able to build a playbook of what we think is going to happen. And from an emergency management and emergency response, because emergencies mean different things. We know, we know there's probably going to be wildfires every year. We know there's probably going to be earthquakes. We know there's going to be floods. We know there's going to be winter storms. There's a lot of these things that we can predict that we can actually build a model around that. These are a lot of the things that we need to do. So many emergencies, when they happen, are like, oh, we need to do something to respond to this. Our hurricanes, we worked in Florida a couple years ago that we were surprised how limited Florida had prepared for a hurricane when they happen almost every year. And so what things can we do from a playbook perspective that, even though it may not happen that often in the DC area, like an earthquake, but what is the playbook? What things should we have that if this does happen, we can do this? Will there be things that are unplanned? Absolutely. But if we can start building some of these playbooks for response, and agencies can subscribe to these, citizens can subscribe to these, so they get the notification, the communication of where to turn or where to get some of the information that they need to respond to keep them safe, keep their families safe. I think that's where we need to go. This is something that we're trying to build out this workflow because it's not always about just the law enforcement agency. I mean, again, in Florida, and we have the partner in the back of the room that did all this. And there's coordination around, FEMA, Red Cross, National Guard, State Patrol, local jurisdiction police. There's a lot of incident command that had to be happening, and they had to build that communication in 24, 48 hours to build that structure. So again, ServiceNow has the ability to build out those playbooks to be able to accelerate some of that. Anything more you'd add?
That was great.
Thank you.
But so in the same, it's happening now. We're doing it. People are doing it. Phone calls, back and forth, meetings. It is a goal, I think, in our region to get everybody on the same page. If something happens, even if it's something small, an incident at, a facility of FPS was responded to that all of the law enforcement partners know. It may not be a playbook, but there may be, contingencies for that type of incident, and then a basic notification. It all goes back to trust and the data, and then, the cooperation of the groups that are involved. DC's hard. There's lots of different agencies.
I would like to thank everyone for joining today, and give a round of applause to Jason and Danny for taking a second.
Good job. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day and enjoy the forum.
All right.